Week 2 of the Central District saw some teams put things together, saw other teams are still wild cards. We saw comebacks, and we saw blown leads in the final minutes. But without further ado, here is the recap of Week 2 of the Central District and a preview into the final week before district play actually starts up. Alright, I said it in the open. There are some teams that we kind of know what they're doing. Other teams are still wild card. Let's go ahead and jump into the first wild card team in the district, and that's going to be the Lewis and Clark Trailblazers. The Trailblazers picked up their second win of the year in a big win against the Loggers of Lincoln Land. They won 83-63, with Jeffrey Daniels adding 24 points, hitting 4 threes, and Araldus Harris adding 15, while Soleimani Davy came off the bench with 12. Like I said, this team's a wild card because it's really hard to judge them. They've only played 2 games, the least amount of games in the district so far. And once again, in the week leading up to district play, they only play 1 more game. So going into district play next week, there are only going to be 3 games into their season. So this team can be either really, really good or they can be really, really bad. We don't know this yet, and that's what's sad because Lewis and Clark has some talent, but we don't know if this talent is going to be able to hold up to the grind that some of these other teams have already been pushed to. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how Lewis and Clark does in their game next week. Another wild card in this district so far is going to be the Kaskaskia Blue Devils. Kaskaskia, through no fault of their own, had a game canceled this week when they didn't have enough referees in their game against Blackburn. They did have 2 games this week, though. They opened up against Southeastern Illinois College, where Coach Hancock's team was able to put up 4 players in double digits. Tim Tayo had 19, Caleb Jennings had 14, Emmanuel Prosper had 12, and Jalen Petty had 12 against the Falcons of Southeastern Illinois College. They went ahead and played Wednesday night against Greenville JV, and boy, oh boy, they won that game handily, 135-73. They led 63-32 at the half, and they had multiple starters in double digits. Actually, Xavier Jackson was the only one not in double digits, and of the 4 starters in double digits, nobody had under 15 points. Emmanuel Prosper had 17 points. Jalen Petty had 25 points. Jahi R. Jones had 26 points. And so did Ezekiel Dawson. He also had 26 points. Coach Hancock had 2 players off the bench. Marcellus Phillips had 18 points off the bench, and Caleb Jenkins had 10 points off the bench. So getting able to get 2 players off the bench scoring 10 points and against a JV team is really good. Only reason I consider them a wild card team is because they did have that cancellation, again, through no fault of their own, but it's going to be very interesting to see as they play 3 teams this week. And I'll throw this next team in as a wild card, even though we kind of know from their games what they're starting to become, and that is going to be the Swick Blue Storm. Southwestern Illinois lost their first game of the year against the Cardinals of Mineral Area 71-58. This Blue Storm trailed by 15 points and really could just never get anything going on offensively, with only having Jaquise Franklin and Dre Boyd in double digits. Franklin had 18 and Boyd had 12, once again falling to the Cardinals of Mineral Area. They came back, though, and won their game against St. Louis Community College with an 84-76 win. So, once again, we kind of know what the Blue Storm are because they played 4 games now, but at the same time, they're really a wild card. And are they going to be the same Blue Storm team that played against Mineral Area, or are they going to be the Blue Storm team that played in the first 2 games of their season last week? Really going to be hard to tell. They play 1 game again this week against Moberly Area, and I'll get to that here in a second. But it's just going to be really hard playing 5 games going into district play on the 22nd. Another wild card in this district is Shawnee. They've been a wild card in the past, and they're going to continue to be a wild card. They ran by William Baptist University JV in their only game this week in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, winning that game 90-67. Trayvon Thomas, Ashton Young scored 19 each for the 2-1 now Saints. Israel Mambu scored 12 points as well as Shawnee led 43-34 at the half. Once again, they played one game this week, and they're going to play one more game before district play starts off. You know, sometimes we don't know, and Shawnee came into the tournament, the Classic, the Kiwanis Classic last week. Focus. There you go. Another one of these wildcard teams is the Shawnee Saints. They ran by William Baptist JV in their only game this week, 90-67 in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas. Trayvon Thomas, Ashton Young each scored 19 points for the Saints that improved their record to 2-1 on the year. Israel Mambu scored 12 as Shawnee led at the half 43-34. Again, only playing one game this week and playing one game in the next week going into district play. It's going to be very, very hard to gauge on how the Saints are. They were really injured last week heading into the Kiwanis Classic in Vincennes, so maybe they're getting healthier. We don't know that yet, and it's unfortunate as they will play one more game before they enter district play the week after next. Last team I'll throw into this wildcard mix is going to be the Olney Central Blue Knights. Olney improved to 2-1 with a convincing 92-60 win over Don Bosco Prep. Marshawn Dickerson led the Blue Knights with 24 points, while Galvin Gilstrap added 17 of his own. Delshawn Sims also was in double digits with 13, and Olney led 44-22 into the half and just cruised the rest of the way. But you get 2 wins against prep schools, 2 teams that you really should beat to improve your record to 2-1 at that point. And then you play against a Parkland team where it was a back-and-forth affair. Olney Central recovered from a 15-point second-half deficit to beat the Cobras. JT Thomas hit 4 free throws in the final minute to put the Blue Knights on top for good. Their second straight win of the week, Darian Lewis and Deshaun Sims paced OCC with 20 points each, while Marshawn Dickerson added 16 and Thomas registered 12, again, including those last 4 free throws over the Cobras of Parkland. And again, so you get a win against Parkland and 2 prep school wins heading into a very tough week for the Blue Knights. They play 3 games this week. This is going to be the type of week that we are really going to see what Olney Central is going to be all about. Are they going to be a good team, or are they going to be a team that is close to 500 but can never really get over the hump? It's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. We've talked about the wild cards right now. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the teams that are really starting to find their own mojo heading into what will be the last week before district play opens up. And we're going to start with the Wabash Valley Warriors. The Warriors lost their first game of the year in a very, very defensive battle against the Jaguars of Danville area, 67-56. Danville led that whole game, but they almost gave it up in the last couple of minutes. They led 34-30 at the half. Jacoy Hetty led the way for the Warriors with 13 points, and Trayton Trice had 11. The host Warriors captured their classic finale, holding off Harry S. Truman 91-88. So again, they're able to get some more points on the scoreboard in the game against Truman. Brandon Razor Moore led 5 Wabash Valley players in double digits with 19, including 3 triples. Jacoby Hetty added 15, while Donovan Jones meshed 4 trays and scored 14 points. The last Warrior in double digits was Krishan Casey, who also had 12. Sorry, Keshawn Casey had 14. Deshaun Nettles had 12. The weird thing is that this game came from the Falcons that only dressed 7 players and finished the game with only 5 on the floor. So the Warriors are starting to kind of get what they are, but you barely beat a team that only dressed 7, finished with only 5 players on the floor. It's going to be really hard to see what the Warriors are, even though we're starting to get a better picture of them. We normally see that 7 to 5 players dressed in the dog days of the season, but to have it happen this early in the season is concerning, and hopefully everything is fine for the Falcons of Harry S. Truman. Another team that we're going to be seeing if they're legit or not is the Lakeland Lakers. They had 6 players in double figures as they cruise against Central Illinois 103-69. Amar Jokulov was the leader of the balanced scoring Lakers with 17 points. Dallas Clocks and Yassine Hassan each had 14, and Johnny Close added 11. With another 10 points by Jameer Terrell. Cox led the hot shooting Lakers as they got past number 14 in Division II, Kirkland, with 16 points. Hassan added another 14 points in that game. The Lakers were white hot from the field. They shot 63%. They won 79-54, and they led at the half 36-35. So they really came out and was able to build on their halftime lead. They finish off their perfect week with an 85-72 win against Rock Valley. The Lakers, once again, scoring leaders for the game were Dallas Cox, who had 22 points. Hassan added 16 with Amardo Camacho finishing with 11 and 10 by Jamar Terrell. The Lakers are going to have 2 more games this week before district play opens up, and it's going to be very interesting to see if they come in to district play unbeaten. The next team on this list that we're going to talk about is going to be the Lincoln Trail Statesmen, who beat Three Rivers in their first game of the week, winning 66-61. Clint Wycliffe had 18 points, and Chris Felix and Nick Kragler added 12. Three Rivers playing a 3rd district team, not able to pull out a second win as the Statesmen led 37-18 at the half, but the Statesmen were outscored 43-29 in half number 2. They evened their record Friday with a 92-57 win against Harry Truman, where they had 6 players in double digits. Malik Reese had 13, Chris Felix added 12, but they were led by Antron Williams, who had 16. The Statesmen ended their week with a 3rd straight win, beating Danville area in the Warrior Classic 75-55. Wycliffe had 3 threes and finished with 20, while Chris Felix, that's going to be one of the names that people in this district are going to have to take note of, is Chris Felix and Clint Wycliffe for the Statesmen. Chris Felix added 11, and Craig Jennings added 10, as well as Nick Kragler also added 10. So 4 Statesmen in double figures in that last game and a 20-point win against Danville. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Statesmen are able to do. They pulled out 3 very quality wins here in this week, and they play 2 more games before district play opens up. It's going to be very, very concerning to see if Lincoln Trail can get those 2 wins this week. They're going in at 5-2 into district play, and they can turn some heads. They've been a very good ball club on the edge of being elite. Let's see if they're able to do it this year. Another team that we're really figuring out who they're all about is the number 13 ranked John A. Logan Volunteers. They had 3 games this week, and they were not easy. I will argue that Logan's week was one of the hardest in the country. They opened up against number 5 in Division I, Indian Hills, and they lost that game 71-69. Kurt Lewis added 19 points, and Isaiah Stafford had 16 for the Vols. The game was tied at 69 before Logan gave up a fast break slam to the Warriors with 11 seconds left to go in the game. The Vols led as much by 18 points in the McDonald's Classic opening game against number 16 in Division I, Northeast Mississippi, and they were looking to cruise. The Tigers, though, they came all the way back, and they won, beating the Vols 84-75. Lewis and Stafford once again led the way for the Vols, both having 18 points, and Elliot Londas added 10 off the bench. But the Vols got back to their winning way, beating Macomb 94-75 in the last game of their McDonald's Classic in Vincennes. Vols fans know, but the rest of us, again, will get to know these names. Lewis and Stafford were the leading scorers for the Vols. Lewis had 16, Stafford had 14. James Dent and Kamari Peterson finished with 13 points each. Logan has one more very tough game before district play opens, and it's going to be very interesting to see how much they fall in the rankings, losing to two very good teams. And the final team that we're going to cover are going to be the number 23rd ranked Vincennes Trailblazers. VU had another perfect week, going 3-0 with two big-time wins in that McDonald's Classic. They opened up the week with a 110-55 win against Indiana Elite Prep. Caleb Johnson and Victor Lando led the way with 15 points each. They had four other players with 10-plus points. Friday night, the Trailblazers trailed number 5 in Division II Macomb 46-32 with 15 minutes left to go in the ballgame. They then go on a 30-10 run to win the game 66-58. Michael Osei Bonsu led the comeback with 16 points as he battled foul trouble in the final 15 minutes. Whatever Coach Franklin said to those guys in shoot-around on Saturday, they turned it around, and it worked because they took care of business against the number 16 ranked in Division I Northeast Mississippi, winning that game 81-57. Chris King led the way with 16 points after only scoring 2 points and fouling out the night before. Cale Gaither added 14, and Shiloh Jackson had 13 in two big-time performances over the weekend. Tazos Cook added 12 again for the Blazers. The Blazers have two more games coming into district play, and it's going to be very interesting to see if they can enter district play 8-0 or 6-2. What I tell you, week 2 had a lot of comebacks and a lot of blown leads. It's going to be very interesting to see how district play goes for these teams. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and jump into this week's slate of games and start with one of the wild cards in the Lewis and Clark Trailblazers. They will play their only game of the week, November 16th, against St. Louis Community College. Again, playing 3 games this to open up before they have to play in the district is very, very difficult to do. You really don't get to gauge your team. You really don't get to see what your players are made of as much as some of these other teams that have played 5-6 games before heading into district play. And let's go ahead and look at Lewis and Clark's district play opening opponent. That's going to be the Shawnee Saints. Shawnee is going to be very interesting to see what they're able to do as well, as they only have one game, and that's going to be against Tennessee Prep. Again, on November 16th, Shawnee is going to be at Tennessee Prep school before you open up against Lewis and Clark. 2 wild cards really going at it. Next week after next, it's going to be very fun to see. I'm really looking forward to district play here in a couple weeks, but we got to get through week 3 first, and Shawnee can't look past Tennessee Prep. I said Olney is still a wild card, and I will stick to it, but they might not be a wild card for much longer. Olney Central this week is going to open up with 3 games. They play November 16th against Triton, November 18th against West Kentucky Tech, and November 19th against Bresca JV. And then they don't play in a district game next week, the week after next. They will play Southeastern Illinois in their only game of that week. So Olney heading into the second week of district play will be 0-0, while the other teams are going to have some district opponents to battle. But we will get to see what Omni Central is going to be all about coming in at the end of the month. A current wildcard team, but a team that we really think will be able to figure out what they're going to be all about going into district play is going to be the Kaskaskia Blue Devils. They have 3 games again on the slate this weekend, and they open up tonight against Greenville JV. Then they'll play Wednesday, November 16th at Oakland City JV before finishing off their slate of games on Friday, November 18th at Southeastern Illinois. So maybe the Falcons of Southeastern are going to get their revenge when the Blue Devils come into town, or will Kaskaskia be able to sweep the Falcons in this opening game before they take on their first district opponent in the Vincennes Trailblazers? Speaking of Vincennes, let's go ahead and jump to them real fast. Like I said, they're going into this week 6-0. They're probably going to get bumped up in the rankings later today. They have 2 games on the slate this week before they travel to Kaskaskia to take on the Blue Devils. That is going to be November 16th at home against Henry Ford, and then November 19th against Danville area. Coach Franklin scheduling 8 home games in the season before traveling on the road to Kaskaskia for their first real road test of the season. It's going to be very interesting to see what Trailblazers show up the week after next when they face Kaskaskia, but they have 2 tough opponents in Henry Ford and Danville area before that. Jumping from VU, let's go ahead and go to Swick, where they will play their only game of the week against Moberly area in the Greyhounds on November 15th. Swick going into the week is going to be very interesting to see what they're able to do against Moberly area, who's only a couple years removed from going to the national tournament. Again, it's going to be very interesting to see how they do before they open up their district play against the Lakeland Lakers. So let's go ahead and look at the Lakers. The Lakers are going to be... They'll have 2 games this week. November 16th against Danville area and November 19th against Parkland. Going to be very, very tough to see if the Lakers can continue to be 6-0 before they take on the Blue Storm of Swick in district play. So let's go ahead and jump into Lincoln Trail's schedule of the week. They open their week against Mineral area. So again, the Cardinals getting to face another District 16 opponent in the Statesman of Lincoln Trail. Like I said, that game is going to be November 15th. A big test for the Statesmen. And then they'll face Briseka on November 18th. Again, so they could go 4-3 going into what I will call opening week of district. Even though they won't have a district opponent, they will face a conference opponent in the GRAC in the Rend Lake team. Rend Lake is a Division II team, so they are not part of the district. Actually, the district tournament is held in Ina, which is where Rend Lake is. So Lincoln Trail will be off for the first week of the district openers, but they face off against 2 very good opponents this week. So like with Kaskaskia playing Southeastern Illinois again this week, the Warriors of Wabash Valley will play another team that they just finished playing this week. They will play 2 games this week. November 18th at Richard Daly, team up in Chicago. And then November 19th, they will have a rematch against Harry S. Truman Community College, again up there near the Chicagoland area. So the Warriors can come out of that Chicago trip 6-1. They could be 5-2. It all depends on how healthy Harry Truman can get before the game against the Warriors on the 19th. But the Warriors not only have to worry about Harry Truman, they will have to worry about the final team that we will discuss tonight, and that is the current number 13 ranked John A. Logan Volunteers. Again, 2 tough losses this last week. It will be interesting to see how much they fall. I want to put it past the NJCAA to drop them out of their top 25. Let's see what JUCO Weekly does, because they were ranked higher in JUCO Weekly than Logan is in the NJCAA, and I might already have that ranking up here already, but they will only have one game this week before taking on the Warriors of Wabash Valley in district play, and that is another very tough opponent. And they are ranked in Division I, and that is going to be the Triton team on November 17th. The Trojans of Triton are going to be a very difficult team. They were, like Logan was this year, a NJCAA tournament participant, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Logan can bounce back after going 1-2 this week. Well, there it goes. We have 2 weeks down in the books, and we just previewed this week's slate of games for the Central District. It is going to be a very good game slate of weeks before we jump into district play. Again, those district opponent games are going to be Lewis and Clark versus Shawnee. It's going to be Kaskaskia versus VU, Swick against Lakeland, and Wabash Valley against Logan to open up district play next week. It's going to be very difficult it's going to be interesting to see what these teams can do final week before district play opens up. And for Olney and Lincoln Trail, they don't have a district opponent this week, so we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty. We're entering the last couple weeks of November, and December is where you really find out how you're going to do in that second semester of games. That's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and I'm still trying to get some coaches to do so it's just not me talking. I might have a couple ideas down the line if I'm able to do it, but I don't want to bother the coaches when they're in preseason mode. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be able to get a couple assistants come district play, but right now that's going to do it for this episode, and I will see you next time.